What if I told you that Ferrari hid a system so advanced in Hamilton's car that not even his own teammate, Charles Leclerc, knew it existed? What if I also told you that this system could change the rules of the game in 2026? This is not a conspiracy theory. It is what really happened during the secret tests in Barcelona, and today I am going to tell you in great detail. Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. What seemed like a simple test session under cloudy skies in Barcelona became a turning point within the Ferrari team. During private testing held behind closed doors between January 26th and 30th, 2026, Charles Leclerc entered the track with the aim of validating new configurations for the SF26. Their approach was methodical. Evaluate the behavior of the new front wing in mixed conditions, collect data for the engineers, and refine its sensitivity with the new Pirelli rubber. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until he started looking at the other cars' records. From the analysis room, where the data from both cars was projected on split screens, Leclerc noticed an inconsistency. It wasn't simply a matter of lap times he and Hamilton were lapping with similar fuel loads and equivalent tires, but how those times were achieved. In sectors where grip was critical, such as the intermediate zone of the circuit, Hamilton was not only faster. He had a power delivery and stability that did not correspond to what Leclerc had felt in his own car. What was intriguing was not the difference, but the nature of that difference. Leclerc requested to review Hamilton's full telemetry, something that normally does not cause conflict, but this time he received silence. The engineers present were evasive, diverting attention to other aspects such as traffic on the runway or the effects of crosswinds. The lack of a clear answer was, for Leclerc, the sign that something was not right. What until then was a technical suspicion turned into a more visceral hunch. His teammate was testing an aerodynamic package that he had not been informed about. During a brief break in the afternoon session, Leclerc went down to the pit lane area while mechanics made adjustments to Hamilton's SF26. From a safe distance, he took advantage of an oversight in the car's camouflage protocol. Some side covers were not in place. What he saw left him baffled. He noticed what looked like an unreported modification on the side of the left pontoon, a hidden, finely disguised slot that seemed to connect to an internal architecture never before discussed in technical meetings. It was not a simple ventilation grill, but part of a highly sophisticated thermal management system, possibly linked to the internal ducts that Ferrari had been secretly developing. The discomfort worsened when he noticed that, in the subsequent laps, the behavior of his partner's SF26 was even more radical. The way it stuck to the asphalt in wet conditions, the way it maintained stability when entering corners, even with the front wing fully open, were evidence that there was more than one variable at play. It was no longer just the aileron configuration, but a complete active aerodynamic system that Leclerc was completely unaware of. Leclerc's frustration was not only technical, but human. He felt betrayed by a team that had always promised him equal treatment. He began to question when Ferrari had made the decision to focus its development around Hamilton without sharing the evolution with both drivers. His trust in the transparency of the technical team began to crack. For the first time, Leclerc stopped feeling like the central pillar of the Scuderia. As he returned to his box, he exchanged glances with Hamilton. There were no words, but the British man, aware of what had happened, simply nodded. It was not a gesture of arrogance, but of silent understanding. They both knew that something profound had just changed in the internal dynamics of Ferrari. From that moment on, they would no longer be two companions fighting for a common goal. They would be two drivers with unequal access to a secret weapon, deliberately hidden, that could define the fate of the 2026 championship before the first race. And Leclerc had just found out, by accident. Lewis Hamilton was quick to make it clear why Ferrari bet everything on him for the new technical era of Formula One. From the first day of testing in Barcelona, it was evident that he not only understood the new SF26, but that he had the ability to take advantage of a system that not even his teammate Charles Leclerc had touched. We are referring to the hidden technological gem of the car, the triple-mode active aerodynamics, a profound evolution of the old DRS, designed to completely redefine the dynamic control of the car during the race. The system in question consists of multiple moving surfaces on both the front and rear spoiler. These elements act as adjustable shutters that can be opened or closed depending on the mode selected by the pilot. Ferrari developed three main settings: X mode, which maximizes downforce for fast corners, Z mode, which minimizes resistance to obtain speed on straight lines, and an intermediate mode, which allows an asymmetric mix between both axles. This third option represents the true generational leap, allowing the downforce to be customized in real time to adapt to changing track conditions and strategy. During the wet runs, where most teams opted to keep cars in the pits, Hamilton asked to continue. I wanted to check if the system responded the same under low adhesion. It was then that the most shocking moment of the entire test was seen. The SF-26 entered turn 7 with the front wing fully open and the rear wing closed, a configuration contrary to what has historically been recommended in wet conditions. However, the car not only held the line, it seemed to find a foothold that the engineers had not simulated in CFD or a wind tunnel. Hamilton had discovered by intuition a mode of aerodynamic exploitation that was not provided for by design. It wasn't luck. It was pure understanding of the car's behavior in the real world. This caused confusion in the paddock. Several rivals, upon seeing the leaked images of the session, began to suspect that Ferrari had crossed a line regarding the technical regulations. But even within the team, the feeling was dual. On the one hand, euphoria at having found a potentially decisive advantage. On the other hand, concern about the internal imbalance that this could cause. Leclerc, still without access to the full system, watched as his teammate unlocked an additional dimension of the car without restrictions. When we talk about technical innovation in Formula One, we almost always think of software, electronic strategies, or driving modes. But what Ferrari brought to Barcelona in 2026 went far beyond the conventional. It wasn't just bits and data. The SF-26 hid physical elements, tangible pieces that had been deliberately hidden from view of everyone, even its own pilots. An internal architecture that did not appear in the launch renders, nor in previous expert analyses. What Ferrari hid in its car can be considered one of the largest exercises in legal clandestine engineering of the modern era of F1. The first of these secret components is a completely innovative lateral duct system. Unlike the traditional S-duct, which channels air from the nose of the car to the top of the chassis, this version designed by Maranello was moved laterally. Ferrari modified the entire internal distribution of the pontoons to allow air flow to enter through openings camouflaged behind the so-called aerodynamic vanes. These vanes, which usually serve only as guides for flow to the radiators, actually hid the true air inlets into a complex internal cooling and thermal balance system. The amazing thing is that these shots were not detectable with the naked eye. They were hidden with surgical precision under the car's paint and were activated aerodynamically only under certain conditions of speed and pressure. The air, once inside, was accelerated by an internal channel built from a hybrid material, a combination of carbon fiber and high thermal conductivity resins. This mixture not only allowed for efficient dissipation of the heat generated by the hybrid power unit, but also kept the weight of the system below the limits imposed by the FIA. This design allowed the SF-26 to have a fundamental advantage over its rivals, the ability to maintain an optimal thermal window even during long runs or in extreme environmental conditions, such as rain or unstable temperatures. With this, tire wear was drastically reduced and constant performance was maintained lap after lap without loss of power or increase in temperature in critical components. But the real gem of this hidden physical architecture wasn't just in the cooling system. Behind the driver's head, right in the area where the main air intake for the turbo is usually located, Ferrari implemented a millimeter slot detected only thanks to leaked videos from unusual angles that connects with what engineers have internally called a hidden S-duct. This secondary duct channels air from the lower part of the chassis to the top of the car, passing through a complex internal compression system that redistributes the flow to improve the efficiency of the rear wing. The most controversial thing about this system is that in previous seasons, its use was directly prohibited by the technical regulations. However, with the 2026 regulatory update, and after a series of legal loopholes not explicitly regulated by the FIA, Ferrari found a loophole to reintroduce this concept under a new interpretation. On a technical level, this is equivalent to actively manipulating the air pressure that affects the rear of the car without using visible moving parts. That is to say, covert active aerodynamics without violating a single clause of the regulations. Legal, yes. Ethically, debatable. The reason why all this was hidden until the last day of testing is revealing. Ferrari knew that a premature reveal of these components would invite not only protests from rival teams, but an immediate FIA investigation. The team used interchangeable camouflage panels, heat-sensitive paints, and parts that were only installed at night, outside of media hours. Access was even limited to certain subcontracted engineers who were not allowed to work directly with critical sections of the SF-26 during testing. subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.